I think each and every one of us is going to have someone in our life that has dementia, if it's not us. And society tends to walk away or hide, or we tend to not want to see that. You know, the worst thing we can do to anyone is to deny their existence. My parents didn't choose to have dementia. I didn't choose to be a caregiver of parents with dementia, but it's my life.
When a caregiver is taking care of somebody with dementia, and Alzheimer's is included in dementia, they're in a situation where the person that they love is slowly slipping away from them. And so they start to experience grief and loss, just like as if someone were dying. And the problem is that you have the person physically in front of you, but they are not there anymore. And that we like to call ambiguous loss, because you just don't know when to start grieving. When does the mourning process start? And there's a ton of sort of guilt and difficulty with processing those feelings. And the statistics show us that if you're taking care of a loved one with dementia over the age of 70, it's more likely that you will die first than the person with dementia.
My name is Arlene Hewen. I work at the Alzheimer's Society of Alberta and Northwest Territories. I am a manager of client services. So the unique challenges for people who are caring for someone with dementia really are around the disease itself and the symptoms of dementia. Some of the symptoms are memory loss, and depending the stage of the disease, you could have short-term memory loss because dementia is progressive, the disease will continue to kind of get worse.
Living with a person with dementia, you see them go through a huge amount of transition over time. And just when you get to know one new person, it changes. And you have to, kind of refocus and reframe and come up with different strategies to deal with them. And, going from a person who's aware that they're losing their memories and aware that they're experiencing dementia and the frustration and agitation that comes with that is different than the end stages where a person can basically end up just a body that's not even able to interact with its world.
One of the most difficult things is the repetitive memories that come up from my mom about things in the past. She'll bring up things like, oh, I wish this was still the way it was, or, and so was still here. And it makes you feel lesser, like you're not doing enough. And that's really difficult because you give everything you can to that care recipient. You have to learn how to sort of listen and not correct. A lot of things are said that aren't necessarily true or 100% true, and it's not like she's doing it intentionally, so you don't argue with her, you just kind of go with it, but it's hard.
Caring for someone with dementia can be very emotionally taxing. If somebody doesn't recognize who you are, you recognize though who they are to you. What happens with dementia is those relationships change, but they don't change for us. They change for the person living with dementia. So the person who you may be caring for is giving you feedback in a way, and it's just not who you're used to. When you think of grief as loss, there are so many losses somebody living with dementia will go through, and then the person caring also goes through those changes.
Caregiving for somebody with dementia, especially if you're living with them, can be incredibly isolating. When someone's taking care of a person with dementia, they often are too close to the situation to really take a step back and evaluate how the person's doing and how they're doing. And so talking to one of our caregiver coaches or taking the Compass for the Caregiver program can help them take that step back and assess the impact their situation's having on them, and then maybe think about some different ways that they could be handling the situation.
Organizations such as ours and Caregivers Alberta, it's one of the things we really try to emphasize for family members is that not only are you caring for someone, but you actually need to look in the mirror. Taking care of yourself will allow you to access some of those moments of joy. What we have to do is train our brains to look at events differently. I would say for family members to think of meaningful activities, but they tend to be things that people enjoyed in their past. One of the great things for people when they're living with dementia is they may not remember that they really enjoyed that. So, I always think of an example with a gentleman, and maybe he used to tear apart engines. For your dad, he might not remember he used to love doing tinkering with engines. So you get to see the joy in his eyes because it feels like he's discovering a fun activity for the first time. And if you can find a meaningful activity that you can engage with together, those are those little moments of, I always think of brightness, where you can actually have fun.
When I started to educate myself about dementia, and if you understand what they're going through, I think it makes you better capable of dealing with them. Probably 2.5 months ago, I went to pick her up and I said, well, what do you want to do? And she said, I don't know. So I said, well, I have an idea. And she said, what? And I said, we're going to a pub. And now we take her every week to a local pub, and she just loves it and just glows. So you sort of learn ways to give them normal. You find ways to give them a feeling of life.
Once a person who's dealing with a loved one with dementia realizes that it's time to reach out and become part of a bigger community of support, then they can actually start getting some resources and information and just honestly a sense of community that they're not alone.
There are many organizations out there willing to help people who are caring for people with dementia. That's one of the things that our organization tries to help families with, is to see that there is joy in caring.